Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August Council meeting. The town of Bassendean acknowledges the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge their continuing contribution that they make to this region. Announcements by myself as the presiding person. I would like to encourage people, residents, to provide feedback on Local Planning Policy 13, Tree Provision and Retention. It's out for public commentary, and the communication on that will close this coming Friday at 5 p.m. So please do go onto the town's website where you'll find the information, and if you do not do online, you can always pop into 35 Old Perth Road to have some information provided to you and provide your feedback. Thank you. Attendances, apologies and applications for leave of absence. Now, an apology, I have Ms Davies is an apology for tonight, and Councillor Wilding is running late. And do I have any other apologies for tonight? No? Okay. And councillors, applications for leave of absence? Yes.
Councillor Rames. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, can I please request leave from Monday the 7th through to Sunday the 13th inclusive? Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, of October.
Thank you. Councillor Carter?
I've already, okay, so I don't have to do it again. No. Okay, thank you.
We still have to vote for it. So, okay, so, councillors, can I have a mover for, Councillor, you're moving it? Okay. Councillor John, anyone, a seconder? Councillor Burke, anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Councillors, do we have any declarations of interest on any of the items on the agenda? No? Okay. We do not have any deputations or presentations tonight. I don't believe we have any statements from members of the public, although we do have one question, which is the next item, item 7. This question has been sent in online. It's from Ms Noni Jefferson, and the question relates to agenda item 12.2, street lighting policy. It's good that the lights will be energy efficient LEDs for most streets, which is warm white. This colour temperature is better for night visibility than cool white. Question, will there be any option to have street lighting that switches off later at night to provide proper darkness for nocturnal animals such as moths, owls, possums, etc., particularly near natural areas such as Bindarring wetland? Now, my understanding is that you can't turn off the lights for certain areas. Is that correct? Without turning all of them off, is that right?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, so the other complication is that those lights are actually Western Power's lights.
Yes.
So Western Power don't typically install smart lighting, which enables the change of the light luminaires. The town, as I'll come to with my report, the town has lights that probably can do that, or certainly down the track, but based on the locations mentioned, Western Power have no provision to modify the lighting levels during the night.
Okay, so is it possible for the officer to forward some information to this particular resident?
Certainly will. Certainly will.
Thank you very much. Okay. I don't believe there are any other questions for tonight. There are no petitions. This now brings us to item 9.1, which is confirmation of the minutes. That the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 30th of July 2024 be received and confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Ames, seconded. Myself. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. There is no business deferred from the previous meeting. This brings us to item 11, the external committee reports and updates. Recommendation that council notes the minutes from external committees that have been received within the reporting period, which is the PAMG meeting. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Carter, seconder. Councillor Ames. Thank you. No one against. I'll declare that carried. Thank you. So, councillors, this then brings us to item 12.1, which is the items en bloc. Now, I have two items coming out of en bloc, which is 12.2, new policy, street lighting policy, and 12.4, BIC reserve amended concept plan. Councillors, are there any other items you'd like to bring out of en bloc? No? Okay, so that leaves 12.3, 12.6 and 12.7 to move en bloc. Do I have a mover for those three items? Councillor Ames, do I have a seconder? Councillor Polifka, do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Councillors, will now move on to item 12.2, which is the new policy, street lighting policy. Now, let's see, Mr. CEO, did you wish to add something?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I would just, given the fact that we didn't have an agenda briefing last week, I'm suggesting that the officers will come to the head of the table. They'll introduce the report in full as they would in an agenda briefing. Then they'll allow time to take questions immediately after. They'll stay in that chair until debate is finished and voting, and then move out and allow the next officer to come through. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's our Director of Infrastructure. Thank you, sir. And if you could provide your report.
So again, good evening, councillors. So this report recommends a new policy, street lighting policy. So town currently doesn't have a street lighting policy, so I'm recommending that we create one and approve one. Maybe before I launch into the policy, I think there's probably some facts and figures that may be useful, especially around ownership of lights, who maintains them, things like that. I didn't go in the report because it's a little bit too sort of operational, but it won't take me a minute to go through it. That may help. So as everybody probably knows, LED lighting is the most efficient, environmentally friendly lighting out there at the moment. So I guess the aim is to eventually have every lights that we have in the town LED. That's car park lighting, parks lighting, street lighting, which is the policy here for street lighting. But just in terms of ownership, Western Power own and maintain 1,600 street lights in the town. So that's street lights, not parks or car parks. 1,600. Of these, a little over 1,000 are non-LED. In fact, most of them are actually mercury vapour. Now, mercury vapour lighting, as you may know, is basically now banned from being installed in Australia. A couple of reasons. The mercury is dangerous if it leaks, and very, very high in electricity demand, which is costly, and also potentially dangerous emissions. So about 50%, 60% of lights that Western Power currently have own and maintain in the town is actually mercury vapour. The town currently pays about $320,000 a year to Synergy for the use of for the electricity for these lighting. So Western Power own them, we pay for the electricity for that. In comparison, the town, we own 31 street lights. So we've got 31, Western Power's got 1,600, so obviously a big difference. And the ones that we own are the ones along Old Perth Road, Most of those are LED, which is great. We have 2 or 3 on West Road, which is the northern section. And there's 4 recently installed lights on McKinley Lane, if I pronounced that correctly. So 31 compared to 1,600. So there's just a few facts and figures that may help a little bit in terms of me covering off the policy as well. So is there any questions on some of those figures? Is that?
I'll wait till you've
Yep,
finished. Yep.
cool. So I guess what that leads you in, and the reason for the policy, I believe, is twofold. One is that we need to be more proactive in, I guess, encouraging Western Power to change their old lights out to LED. As you see, they're 65% aren't LED. So we need to be, as a town and as a council, I guess, being proactive in saying to Western Power, you need to be changing these out as soon as possible. So the policy talks about that. And secondly, we need to be also getting Western Power to improve, I believe, their maintenance of these street lights. Any one time, I think, as I've written in the report, there could be 5 or 6% of street lights not working in the town, and that's pretty consistent through most local governments. And unfortunately, the town pays for every street light, even if they're not working. So the other part of the policy talks about the town being able to say to Western Power on synergy that we shouldn't be paying for the lights that aren't working as well. So in the report, I talk about some potential sort of cost savings in the town doing auditing and getting a reduction in the synergy invoices. So the policy basically has those 2 parts. It's really around wanting LED to be converted, Western Power and the towns, and also the improved maintenance and reduced electricity costs for the lights that aren't working in the town.
Okay. Councillors, Councillor Carter?
Oh, thank you for that. It was a very interesting report, things I didn't know. What surprises me is that if they're mercury lights, hasn't Western Power got a policy themselves to replace them at, on a sort of an ongoing basis?
Yeah, Western Power's current position is that they won't replace them unless they're faulty or not working.
Okay.
So, and Western Power don't do audits of their lights, so most of the time it requires residents or the town to tell them that lights aren't working. Currently, if they're aware that the lights aren't working and they're faulty, they will most of the time replace them with LED. But they have to be not functional before they do that.
Right. So, but it's up to them whether they do that or not. But they certainly don't replace them with a mercury lights. They're being phased out.
Definitely, if they don't replace them with LED, they may do high pressure sodium or metal halide, which aren't as, I guess,
Energy efficient.
Yeah. So hence the reason why I think we need to be. Well, I know we need to be sort of, I guess, proactively saying they need to be changed to LED.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Councillor Plifka, did you want to go first?
Yeah, I suppose just in terms of what Western Power's doing on the ground, when they, along West Road, they put in, so they removed the sort of multiple wires and consolidated into just a sort of larger black wire. They put up new posts. The light seems to be a sodium lamp that they put back up. It's got that sort of yellow, orangey type colour. Is that something that they would still continue to do when they put in new infrastructure to put in sodium lamps as opposed to LEDs?
Yes, I've witnessed it. Like I say, I think it, unless I guess the local government or the council aren't being proactive in saying that they need to be replaced with LED, they're not always doing that. They're replacing it with what they might have in the depot, for example. So if it's a yellow orange light, it's not LED. So
I think it's a sodium lamp.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
In terms of that, how do we require Western Power to do something different? Do we need a policy? How do we stop them from putting in these more expensive lights for us to run and to put in the LEDs that we want?
Yeah, so that's exactly the reason for the policy, I believe. So the policy needs to be an advocacy document too, where potentially we write to the minister. We need to be using this document as a tool to say that the town expects the lights to be changed to LED. request a program replacement. But we need to, I think, have a council position on that, and I think this policy aims to do that.
I suppose the final question is, given what we've seen happen with the replacement of the above ground lighting, when we're undergrounding the power going forward, is this an opportunity for us to now say, well, we want LEDs when this occurs? Because I take it when they sink the power lines, they're going to have to install new lights, and that's a point in time where we can say we want the LEDs instead?
I think we need we certainly can. So the underground power program does convert to LED. It's automatic, and that's why the town has seen an increase in LED, because of the underground power program that Western Power aren't paying for. It's obviously shared, they're paying for a bit of it. So I think as well as the underground power program, we need to also be pushing for, as part of maintenance operating, the change to LED. Like for example, the next stage of the underground power program, which is North Bassendean, I counted today, I think there'll be about 180 Western Power street lights that are currently mercury vapour that'll be converted to LED. That's only 170 or 180 of the 1,000 that aren't. So it's a low proportion. So we can't just rely on the underground power program to be converting. We need to be pushing ourselves as well, I believe.
Okay, councillors, if you don't mind, if I could just ask a further question about the underground power projects. We had the Ashfield Underground Power Project, which must be going back about 10 years now, and we've had the Eden Hill Underground Power Project. Is there a discrepancy with, like, are we being charged the lower rate when they're converted to LED, or is there some discrepancy in how we're being charged for this? Because I understand that the drop in the charging doesn't always automatically happen, which leaves the town vulnerable for being overcharged. Is there a way of actually assessing that as well?
Yeah, there is. So the invoices from Synergy do specify what the light type is, and there should be a reduced tariff for the LED. I'm not sure 100% whether it's actually accurate, whether the town is checking that as much as it probably could be. So I think that's probably a bit of a work in progress to make sure that Western Power are actually charging depending on the luminaire.
Okay.
So there's probably a bit more work to do in that space, I believe.
Okay. And my other question goes back to the question about Guildford Road lights. This may be outside the scope of the policy, but it seems ludicrous to me to replace what were the existing lights, which were just underneath the tree canopy, to put them much higher, and they're now in the tree canopy. So driving down Guildford Road is now darker than what it used to be with the old lights. Is there any way of actually shaking some sense into how these things are applied when they're doing projects?
Yeah, so it certainly seems a bit odd. So I'm not sure about the background with that particular street, obviously, but
It's Guildford Road.
yeah, I understand. I'm not sure about why they made them higher and the luminaires are in the trees, but I could certainly look into that and see what caused it.
Okay, and was it Councillor Burke or Councillor John first? Councillor Burke, then Councillor John.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, quick question, and just for information really, do we have any predictive analytics as to the cost saving if we were to convert to LED versus what we're currently paying?
I don't have them with me, but we certainly can work that out. Yeah, as I say, the tariffs are different depending on the luminaire.
Yeah.
Can't tell you what they are now, but it certainly can be provided. Yep. No worries.
Councillor John.
When you were talking about based on the assumption that 7% of streetlights are out at any one time, if Western Power is relying on us or residents to tell them for that, could we get that number lower by running an education campaign or as part of our policy?
It's a good idea. I haven't thought about that. I think in the report that we tabled in front of you, I've suggested that the town do their own audits. I've had that process in place at previous local governments I worked out, and as I've said in the report, it's I guess the cost for the town to do audits annually. I believe will be a fair bit cheaper than a reduction in the synergy invoice amount. So I think it's worthwhile proceeding with that proposal.
Could we perhaps look at maybe having a way through our website that people can report a faulty light?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure. Again, based on previous experience, residents do tend to phone up the local government more so than Western Power directly. Having that friendly sort of person on the other line, the council will then escalate it to Western Power. But if there's better ways to improve that communication and knowledge base, I think it's a good idea to be explored.
Okay. Last question from me. With the street lights that we own down Old Perth Road, and given the historical issues that have eventuated because of owning those lights, I was given to understand that there is potential when we come to an underground power project that actually takes in that street, that we could give those lights, the management and running and maintenance of those lights, back to Western Power. Is that something that you would look at into the future?
Yeah, it can be explored. I guess the only benefit, there is benefit of the town having their own streetlights. Again, as I've said in the report, there's opportunities around smart street lighting these days. So being able to adjust lighting levels, some councils are now doing that to reduce the cost. Now there's still requirements around safety for road users, but a lot of councils are actually preferring to have their own streetlights now and going the other way, so they can actually control their own streetlights.
I think the problem for us has been a division of where the infrastructure problems have been, either underground with Western Power's lines or with our owned part of the street lights. And given the last 2 years, they've probably been out more than they've been on. So I'm thinking that perhaps, my understanding is that the town originally took over ownership of those lights to install heritage-looking lights, but I think it was 4 or 5 years ago they were changed back to fairly modern-looking lights. So I would be interested in exploring that topic with you into the future about whether that's infrastructure that we should continue to own. So, thank you.
Happy to.
Councillors, are any further questions? Okay, so we have an officer recommendation. Sorry, just turn the page. That council adopt the street lighting policy as attached to this report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wilding. Seconder, Councillor Burke. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you. So the next item is 12.4 BIC master plan. It's 12.4. Yes.
Good evening, councillors, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry. So it's my pleasure to present this report, which is item 12.4. Excuse me. The purpose of this report is just to seek council's approval to amend the Big Reserve Concept Plan in response to recent scoping for the project. The proposed changes are minor in nature and remain consistent with community feedback. However, they do represent a change from the concept plan that was adopted back in April, and hence the need to bring it back to for your approval this evening. The changes, if I can go into just a little bit of detail, it's fairly self-explanatory in the report, I hope, but we are looking to retrofit one light tower and install a new light tower rather than 2 new installations. We are seeking to pause on the skate park removal, which also includes the limestone retention and associated earthworks, until such time that the future development of the infant health clinic is determined or realised, and also just to relocate the fitness equipment so that it's now in the vicinity of the James Street cul-de-sac car park area and closer to the peppermint trees. The recommendation there is to put it all close together, which is seen to be the most contemporary design for fitness equipment. None of this has an impact on the grant funding in the sense that it doesn't change that budget at all. And all the elements of that grant funding remain in place. There is a slight proposed change to the schedule, which has been approved by the Federal Department of Infrastructure. So the final cost estimates and the final concept design were due to be submitted on the 1st of August. It's now the 2nd of September, which is actually next week, so it's not that far away, with the next milestone being the 1st of December, when we need to have appointed the contractor. We're well on track with that, so we're not seeing that the deadlines are compromised, and therefore the first milestone payments either. There may be some savings to the municipal budget. We can't be sure about that just yet, because we need to complete our current costings exercise, but there may be some savings, and we can update the council with that information through the CEO bulletin. I think that's all I needed to say. Do we have any questions?
Certainly, I have a few questions.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, so the list that we've got on page 24 of the agenda, and then the following page actually lists what's in and what's out, but I just want to check off because the grant funding is supposed to cover the replacement of trees,
Yes.
But I think that's been deferred at the moment. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. There's a note at the front of the report just noting that we're confirming that there will be 12 trees and confirming what they will be, but there's no other change. The trees remain in.
Okay, so a further question on that, because the trees are surrounding the War Memorial, some time ago I did send through a potential grant which would cover some of the cost of that, and I'm wondering if that has been explored, because the other aspect of the War Memorial as well is the defunct reflection pond, which I would assume could potentially be turned into a garden, because it has actually not worked as a functioning fountain pond, whatever you'd like to call it, since it was installed. So if there's any chance of looking at that, it would be really interesting to see whether we could attract grant funding given this other work that may be done around the War Memorial. The next part is the bench seating, which I understand is in. The next part is the 2 lighting towers, which you've just explained. The exercise stations you've explained. The municipal part, all of that looks fairly straightforward. The bore shed is out at the moment, is that right? And the concrete skate park?
It's through you, Madam Mayor. I might just check with the Director of Infrastructure about the bore shed, whether that's in or out.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. It's actually an iron filter shed that is not being relocated. So it's because it's in at the front of that vacant property.
Yep.
It'll be left there as it is.
Okay, so that's not going to proceed at the moment, nor is the limestone retaining or the concrete skate park removal. The new shed for the tennis courts, I believe that's going to proceed.
Yes, correct.
Okay, we've got contingency. The modular toilets at the budget process, I was the one who asked about incorporating that into the 24-25 year. I'm just checking off that is actually going to proceed in this financial year.
Yes, that's correct.
Right,
Madam
okay.
Mayor.
Okay, so the replacement of the trees, we had a lot of discussion about that last time this item came. It looks to me from this report that you're planting mature trees in between some of those trees, but in the report it says removal of those red flowering gums, and I actually think it's the 4 that are closest to the cul-de-sac that need to be removed rather than the red flowering gums, but it's got replacement of them. But I just wanted perhaps the staff to have a look at that and see if the wording is just wrong in the report.
Happy to do that, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. And the insurance on the toilets, I'm assuming the price that's quoted here, 130,000, is the total, but there will be an insurance payout that comes back to the town for that, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding, Madam
Right,
Mayor.
okay.
No, sorry, I might have to correct myself and refer to my esteemed colleague, the Director of Corporate Services on that matter.
Sorry, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. The insurance proceeds, my understanding is that they cover the cost of demolition and remediation of the site, and that's about it.
Okay, okay. There's not really a toilet block then, is it? But never mind. Okay. My last question relates to the pathway in the actual plans that were on the attachments. It's got the proposed pathway that runs parallel to James Street car parking and connects with the toilets. It's near the charging station as well. That's actually not listed in this list on page 24, but it is in the plans. So I'm not entirely sure whether that's also been put on hold or whether that's going ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's actually in the proposed for the 25-26 budget.
Right, okay.
But not, so yeah, it'll form part of budget deliberations.
I think my conversations with the CEO have been along the lines of, I don't see the necessity of a path that's just in from the, but anyway, that's a personal thing. Councillors, further questions on this item? Councillor Ames?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Just a question in regards to the 12 exercise stations. Who would have thought, coming from a fitness professional? It seems that in that little area on the map to be quite concentrated. Obviously, that's what the contemporary feel would be. Jamming 12 exercise stations that potentially, what are they, like 2x2, 3x3, like soft fall areas? Is that going to be very congested? Are they going to be sort of spread around so it's not just like one big soft fall area, or is it one big soft fall area and 12 pieces of equipment sort of in and around?
Through you, Madam, we're probably in early stages with that. We'll ask for the preferred supplier to provide a configuration that will make sure that it works effectively, and we'll take on board your feedback in that regard. Thank you.
Councillors, further questions? Councillor Plivka?
Yeah, on page 24, so you've got the grant funding, and there's a line item of 53,800.
Councillor Plivka, I can't hear you, sorry.
Bring this closer. That talks about 600 litre plus establishment labour, so I'm assuming that's 600 litre trees, is that we're talking about there? So
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is where I need Nicole Davey, but yeah, I will have to check. I'm assuming it's the capacity of the tree roots.
yeah, so I mean that makes sense, a 600 litre bag, but then further down it talks about a total of 12 new 500 litre sized native trees. So I was just trying to work out whether it was the 500 or the 600 or if it was just a typographical error. But look, that's not the main part of my question. The main part relates to the shot hole borer. So here we're choosing to put in some new trees. Have these trees been considered for their resilience to the shot hole borer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I will have to take that on notice because I'll need the advice of Nicole Davey on that matter. I would assume so, yes.
Councillors, further questions? Just one last question from me. We've got future works that are planned as shown in that plan. I'm assuming that allocations for those future works would come back to council, is that correct? So if there are some changes in the future, I'm particularly thinking of the soundstage, if there's changes in the future that might affect that, a future council might have the ability to change this plan?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's all the questions that I can hear from councillors unless I'm not seeing anybody. So councillors, the officer recommendation that council approve the amended BIC reserve concept plan as attached to this report. Do I have a mover for that item? Councillor Plivka, a seconder, Councillor Ames. Anyone against I'll declare that carried. So councillors, the next item is 12.5, which is the annual budget. Mr. White will come and do a presentation on that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, councillors. A very short presentation. So the reason for bringing this forward to council is because when we prepare the budget, even though the budget's for the 1st of July, and we sort of need to cut things off towards the end of May. So we are estimating the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks of the financial year to the best of our ability. And that includes estimating capital projects and what we think might be complete and what might need to be carried forward into the next financial year. So this really is, this report really is to correct those estimations with what has actually occurred post the end of year close off. So you'll see in the attachment there's a list of all of the capital carry forward projects, not just the ones that have changed. And those that have changed are highlighted in blue in the confidential attachment. In terms of what was initially estimated when the budget was formed and adopted by council, and what we are proposing. There's no change in the overall funding position. It's merely their timing matters in between one financial year and the next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. Councillors, there is the possibility of taking this item behind closed doors if need be, because the attachment is confidential. I do have one question which possibly should be behind closed doors, but I'll ask first if there are any other questions from councillors. Okay, so I'll just ask the advice of the CEO. Should we go behind closed doors or deal with the notice of motion first?
I'm actually quite comfortable, Madam Mayor, that we don't need to go behind closed doors.
Okay, I'll ask this question anyway. Mr. White, with the attachment, sorry, I'm just trying to find it. Success Hill Reserve Fencing, AP 2407, and it's clearly supposed to be a carry forward. However, in the extreme right hand column it's actually got 0, and I just want to know whether that's an error or whether that should have been the amount it carried over into that right hand column.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it's actually was re-budgeted during the budget process.
Right, okay.
It could have been a carry forward. It probably should have been, but it was actually re-budgeted when we were going through the part of formulating the budget, and that's why it's not showing here as a carry forward. So
Okay.
the budget still definitely exists for this financial year.
Thank you for that, because I would have been horrified if we had to juggle that around. So, so thank you for that explanation. I couldn't quite work it out. Yeah. And sorry. The other one is the water truck. This question probably has nothing to do with the budget, probably has more to do with my concerns about is this going to be delivered before the summer watering season, and are there any foreseen problems with this delivery? I'm thinking Mr. Asmus would like to answer that.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. So we have recently found out that the truck should be in our hands by November this year. So at the moment, as you may know, we've got 2 water trucks, and this new water truck replaces one of the old ones. Yep. And all we'll do is basically lift the old, too much detail here, but lift the old water tank off the old one and put onto the new truck. So really we're not creating any more capacity in the tanks. It's just a brand new chassis, I guess.
Okay.
The tank. But as part of that too, we're looking at some a bit of technology around being able to water from the truck, from the cabin, to make sure the water actually ends up on the plant as well, with aiming and that sort of thing.
I was aware that you were looking at some additional technology. I think that's what's prompted my question, because if the truck is late in being delivered and then you have to fix that. how does this fit in with your leasing of the old truck? Are you able to relinquish that lease at any time?
Yes, sorry, Madam Mayor, yes, we are. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We stay in touch with the leasing company almost fortnightly with our leases. So
Okay.
they're aware of what's going on.
Okay, and the one that I wanted to query was the retaining wall for Hamilton Street property. Let me just find that. That is,
So it's third from the bottom.
thank you.
I can
Given
attempt to
ha-
answer.
okay, I'm just trying to frame this. So, given the cost, I guess my question to the administration and to the CEO would be, would you like to reconsider whether that work actually needs to be done, or whether, given the land is going to be sold, is there potential for the land lot to be sold without that retaining wall being put in, and then leaving it to the developer to decide how he configures that in that combined lot, because it's a 437 square metre long skinny section that is being added on to 1,400 or something like that. So it creates an 1,800 square metre block. I guess my question is, would the administration consider if there is an ability to sell that combined lot without putting in the retaining wall and all the expenses attached to that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, my understanding of this particular project over the last sort of 12 to 18 months or so is that all of the options have been considered, and Council made the decision in May to engage in these works, and the only reason it's come forward as a carry forward project is because it just missed the cut-off date when we were producing the budget. Otherwise, it would have already been in the budget as a project for this amount of money. So it's merely to implement Council's decision from May. If Council was of a mind to alter its decision, I mean, that can occur. The works haven't commenced yet, but it would need to come back before Council, or Council would need to make a different decision on what to do with that land. But I think it has been the subject of a number of reports from Council over the years.
Yeah. Mr. CEO, you obviously wish to add to that.
I understand it's been a while since I asked, but the manager of planning advised me that it was a condition of the original DA, and we've let one DA expire, and we've just had to get the new DA approved. So, given it's a condition of the DA, we must proceed.
Okay. That's a shame, given how expensive a retaining wall is. But anyway, I thought I would actually go on a fishing trip there. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for that information. Councillors, are there further questions on this item? No? Okay, so we will go to the officer recommendation that Council adopt the carry forward capital projects budget as detailed in the confidential attachment to this report. Do I have a mover for that item? Councillor Wilding, seconded. Councillor Ames. Is there anyone against? I'll declare that carried. So, councillors, that's the end of the reports, which now brings me to item 13.1, which is the notice of motion that I propose crossover policy, requesting the administration to bring forward an updated policy by the end of this year. Mr. CEO, I note your comments at the end of this report. Is there any additional comment from the administration?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Not from me personally, but I might ask Infrastructure Director to make any comments, given his experience with crossovers in other local governments.
Yeah, so as it turned out, we're sort of 3/4 of the way through updating or reviewing the policy, crossover policy anyway. So the existing policy, without going into too much detail, my view is existing policy is far too wordy at the moment, and the intent, I believe, but if they've ever workshop it, is to reduce the policy down to, I guess, what a policy should be, and have an overarching either specifications or operating sort of document below that then talks about what's allowed and what's not allowed on the verge around width and the technical data behind it. So I've taken into account some comments that have been given to me around what needs to be considered. So really, within the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks, we'd be pretty confident we've got the revised crossover policy and document under that ready to be presented.
So can I just quickly ask a question, because clearly I perused a lot of crossover policies before I came to composing. So, yeah. So my question is, there's a lot of diversity between local governments and what they specify, and the reason this has become prevalent in my mind is the number of small frontages. So I'm curious about, how does the administration, when you say that the policy is too wordy and it's the document underneath that should be giving all the specifications, I would tend to agree with you in respect to specifications, but most of those policies that I've perused have actually specified maximum width, possible use of other materials, blah, blah, blah. So is that what you're thinking in respect to provision of a new policy?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I must admit I was, as far as my view is with policies, it should be around when do we pay the subsidy, how do you apply for a crossover, that sort of overarching, I guess, information that residents need to know. And then the document I'm talking about does talk about the width. And when I say specification, it could be an information sheet or a similar document. I think the substance of then how it's built, where it's built, should be in that other document. But certainly, some councils do, you're right, they do have that in the policy. My view is that's not for the policy, but that's, I guess, up to, for further discussion. It's just my view on it. But I'm interested to see what others feel. But that's my view on it. And all the operational things around providing clarity around the crossover itself is that other document, in my view.
I have no interest in the operational process of the crossover. I'm more interested in some of the rebates and the widths and things like that. So, yeah, okay. Interested in what comes back to us. So, thank you for that. Councillors, are there any further questions? So clearly I'm moving this notice of motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Polifka. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. And I look forward to policy, Mr. Amos. So, I don't believe there are any announcements of other motions for the next meeting. We have no urgent business I know of. Confidential business, none. Brings us to the closure of the meeting at 6:51, I think that is. So councillors, public and councillors, the next ordinary council meeting will be held on Tuesday the 24th of September 2024, commencing at 6 p.m. Thank you one and all, and councillors, I'll remind you that we just wait for the recording to be turned off.